Hi, Susan Hofford. I am the co-chair for the Law School Outreach Committee. If you look at the Attorney General website, you can easily see that the number of civil bureaus far outnumbers the number of criminal bureaus. What experience do you have that will enable you to properly supervise the civil side of the AG's responsibilities? And do you have any plans to reorganize the civil side or create any new initiatives on the civil side?
That's an excellent question, because one of the things I'm learning is that all you've been as a prosecutor, you talk about this as a super DA's job. It is not a super district attorney job. There certainly is a criminal element, but it's probably on the order of about 10%. I've run a civil law firm, co-managed Bernstein Litowitz. I'm the only one running who, in addition to being a prosecutor, has been a partner in a major international corporate firm, defending companies, in particular Xerox, a New York-based company, is when I was over there, and someone who brought cases. And so I think I have the broadest legal experience. And by managing a law firm, I understand, particularly a plaintiff's law firm, where you don't send bills out every month and get paid and pay the rent. You only get paid if you're productive, if you're successful, if you get results. So you know how to allocate resources where they can best be used. So there's that private sector experience that I have in that regard. With regard to initiatives, first of all, I disagree with Richard, with Assemblyman Brodsky in one way. I don't think this is a race about fixing or dramatically changing the Attorney General's office. I happen to think it's in good hands and has been run exceptionally well. I certainly want to get in there and look around and see what I might do differently, but there are a couple things I know I would probably do differently. One of the most important industries in New York right now, besides Wall Street, is intellectual property. A lot of companies in New York are actually losing money over the internet. I know this because, in addition to securities cases, I actually sued YouTube for copyright infringement on behalf of a lot of different owners of intellectual property. It's a real risk to them. So I would pull together, I think right now Attorney General Cuomo has some lawyers working on this, but I would put that together and have an intellectual property protection unit, because that is an important industry of New York, and that's just one example, I think, of the innovation I would bring based on my experience in the private sector.
Eric Dinallo.
There is, in fact, two sides to the Attorney General's office that are civil. There's the defense side, which defends New Yorkers' tax dollars in federal and state court day in and day out. That's the majority of the lawyers who work there. And then there are all the civil cases that are done at the Attorney General's office that are not criminal cases. I've done some of the largest civil cases ever done at the Attorney General's office, and responsible for the largest regulatory settlements on Wall Street and in the insurance industry, including the settlement of the World Trade Center for $2 billion. So I know both criminal investigations, criminal prosecutions, and large civil undertakings, investigations, lawsuits, and settlements. I would, on the defense side, I think we are sitting on top of a treasure trove of data as an agency that needs to be mined and looked at for cost-saving measures that can go forward. That office on the civil side represents every single agency of the state, including the governor's office. And there is great opportunities to learn about what we can do as a state going forward, partnering with Andrew Cuomo, presumptively in the restructuring and reorganization of state government. I think there's huge opportunities flowing from the civil side that I want to participate on. And then finally, on the private side, I was the general counsel of a global company, and I was the head of regulatory affairs representing consumers across the entire world in that responsibility. So I know how to do complex civil representation, both on the defense side and the affirmative side, and indeed the office, I don't think needs to be restructured so much on this, but there are great opportunities to learn from the past experience, and I say this, I think it's important, keep the morale of those people very, very high. The defense lawyers in that office, their victories are like the CIA. They're very quiet. They get irresponsible lawsuits expunged and set aside, and I think they need to be told what a great job they do.
Someone.
The bureaucratic structures of the office are important, always need renewal and thinking and change, but at the heart of the argument I make in this race, it is that the Attorney General's office should be addressing legal problems that affect people in their daily lives. Let me give you two very specific areas where I think much more needs to be done. First is privacy. You'll note, for example, that if you go onto Google Maps, it turns out that Google, when they were running down the street taking pictures of the road and the stores, decided to put up antennas and intercepted emails in open source communication, sit in Starbucks, and recorded the data and saved it. Now, it just so happens I authored a law that made that illegal, but it seems to me that the invasion of privacy of the citizenry by corporations and government, I don't care if it's Stop and Frisk or Google, is a fundamental constitutional, legal, and human right that is not being adequately looked at by the Attorney General. That is not to say that I would create a privacy bureau, as the question purported to suggest, but I would say to you that those kinds of issues, the unexamined legal and constitutional issues that affect the daily lives of New Yorkers, need to be changed, not because the previous Attorney Generals did a bad job, but because the challenges that we face, the legal problems and social problems people face, they change. And the transformational argument I make is something that I've managed to do with large institutions like public authorities, and I believe I can do equally well with the Office of Attorney General.
Senator.
Thank you. I do have specific proposals to deal with the largely civil functions of the AG's office. I do have a lot of experience in civil practice, Sean. I was also a partner in a major national law firm with a huge securities practice, so I do understand how to manage those kinds of cases. I proposed a religious rights bureau in the civil rights union to deal with that kind of discrimination. I proposed reorienting the organized crime task force to deal with the plague of illegal gun trafficking. I'm the national chair of Legislators Against Illegal Guns, something I'm committed to reorienting the Attorney General's office to address. But the two issues that people care about the most, that I hear about the most in the campaign, really are the effects of the financial meltdown on average New Yorkers and the issue of public corruption. On financial meltdown, I would reorient the office towards a little bit lower down on the food chain than some of the big Wall Street cases, which still need to be brought. But at the bottom of the heap, of the rubble left by all these folks who put a lot of bad mortgages together and created a security, are a lot of people who were steered into bad mortgages when they could have afforded cheaper ones. I held the first hearings in the state on mortgage fraud. I've dealt with the issue of debt collection, which is a totally unregulated area in New York State. I proposed creating a debt squad to shift some of the expertise on financial fraud down to the average problems of everyday people. And on public corruption, I've proposed putting a public corruption officer in every regional office, substantially expanding the function. And here I do have a little bit of a disagreement with some of my colleagues. I don't believe that the Attorney General's office should ever be viewed as a super DA's office. But in the area of public corruption, I know a lot about this from running campaigns against Republicans in districts that they owned, as I've been engaged in the effort to take back the Senate. A lot of times people will not go to the local authorities on public corruption issues because the local authorities are a part of the culture of corruption. The Attorney General has got to, in the regional offices all around the state, be the place people can go to deal with it, and that's something that I have a very strong commitment to.
Okay.